Taste a nut every 24 hours. Each time you flush the toilet, cold water washes through the acorns, gradually leaching them of their bitterness. And when there's no bitter aftertaste, your acorns are ready. Just so you're aware, my personal toxic trait is when I see something on the internet that looks like it should be easy, I just assume that I can do it too. This goes for baking, cooking, gardening, even building stuff. Might be a little bit of Dunning-Kruger in there, I'm not sure. But anyways, I thought I'd give it a try. Here is my step-by-step process of using a toilet tank to turn acorns into flour. I've never harvested acorns before. I've never turned them into flour. I've never baked with them. I've never eaten anything baked with them. So I think I'm going to give this project about a 2. But let's try it out together and see how it goes. First things first, you need a bunch of acorns. I grabbed a bunch from under a white oak tree. It might have been a mast year because youngest kid and I managed to grab a gallon just by sitting in one spot for a few minutes and grabbing the acorns we could reach. I didn't record it because honestly, I had no idea I was going to make a YouTube video. But I'm pretty sure you all can handle picking acorns up off the ground. Go for the brown ones that pop right off the cap. If it's green or it has a hole in it, toss it. If they're wet, let them dry out or pop them in a dehydrator. It makes it easier to shell them. This part takes a little patience. Crack them open, peel off that thin brown skin, and toss the good nut meat into a bowl of water. If you don't use the water, they'll get discolored kind of like an apple after you cut it and let it sit out. It's not a big deal, but it's just not very pretty. Something you should know, there's many types of oak trees. What I have access to are Oregon white oaks, also known as Gary oaks. White oaks are known for their low tannin level, which means it takes less time to wash the bitterness away. There's also red oaks, black oaks, bur oaks, live oaks, tons of different oak trees. So try to identify yours and find out how high the tannin levels are in your acorns so that you've got an idea of how long it will take to process them. Still cracking. This part was pretty relaxing. I'm a fan of mindless, repetitive motions. Put on a show or podcast and you'll find that although this takes a while, it's not a big deal. Here's an acorn that was bad when I cracked it open. It obviously had a worm in it. Gross. Somehow I missed seeing that hole. This one is, I don't know. It's black inside though, so I didn't end up using it. Now we're going to grind them. I'm using a food processor, but I think the blender would work too. The next step is putting your ground acorns in a sack. I like these because of the drawstrings. Then, we're going to put them in the toilet tank. Alright, so here's the embarrassing thing. When I started out on this project, I did not stop to think about how dirty toilet tanks are. I mean, maybe some people keep theirs clean. It's not something I've ever really done though. So I opened it up and it was disgusting. It took a lot of cleaning, but I got it done. Here's a dramatic reenactment of what my toilet tank looked like. It was dark and slimy and not a place to put food. So it was time to clean. I wiped the inside out carefully with paper towels. For the hard to reach places, behold my amazing invention. After it was wiped out, I sanitized it by adding a teaspoon of bleach and letting it sit for a couple hours. After that, I flushed it a few times before adding the acorns. Make sure your bag of acorns isn't blocking anything important. Every time you flush, fresh water cycles through and washes out the tannins. Now, here's an area the internet was a little vague on. With the exception of one blog that told me to start tasting the acorns an hour into processing, I couldn't find any solid information on how long these nuts would need to leach. I did find a few articles that noted that if I left them in the water for too long, it would wash away the starches, which apparently we don't want to do. So I played it safe and started tasting them every day, starting 24 hours in. And here's another thing that the internet isn't super explicit about. Saying that these acorns are bitter, to me, is an understatement. When I tasted them, it felt like I had a mouth full of Comet, you know, that powder cleaner? Swallowing them wasn't an option. I was barely managing not to vomit. Maybe I just have sensitive taste buds, or I'm particularly reactive to tannins? I don't know. All I do know is that I managed to Pavlov myself into having a pretty negative reaction to our toilet after doing this for over 3 weeks. That's right, it took more than 3 weeks of toilet tank soaking to make these palatable. And remember, I have low tannin Gary oaks. Maybe this is a me issue. Like I didn't grind the nuts enough, or the bag that I used wasn't porous? I'm not sure. But just so you're aware, plan on leaching taking possibly weeks, not days. As the end of November was approaching, I realized that my in-laws were coming to town for Thanksgiving. I had stained bags of acorns dripping brown tannin water hanging out of every toilet in the house. I realized that this probably wasn't something that looked very nice for guests. So, mouth still burning from trying to force down my tannined up acorns, I looked for another solution. Enter hot leaching. Hot leaching is basically boiling them for 5 to 10 minutes, pouring off the water, and then doing it again. According to the blog I was reading, you need to have your water already pretty hot when you reintroduce it to the acorns, so I was using a kettle to heat it up. This destroys the starches. I don't know if I need starches, but we don't have them anymore. After doing this 5 times, I thought that maybe the acorns were finally tasting mild, but I wasn't quite sure because at this point my tongue felt like it had been burned off by chemicals. I consulted my husband, who agreed that they no longer tasted like soap. At this point, he jumped in to help because I think he could tell that I was really fed up. We've got a dehydrator, so I use that to dry the pieces. If you don't have a dehydrator, spread the pieces out on a baking sheet and stick it in the oven as low as it will go. I think that'll work. No promises, though. Then we tossed it back in the food processor, which didn't do shit. So I got out my coffee grinder to grind it up further. After grinding batches for about 15 minutes, the motor overheated and gave out. But hallelujah, we do have some acorn flour. Behold my acorn flour. The internet tells me that it's nutty, earthy, and kind of sweet. I honestly can't taste any of that. It's also a pain in the ass to make. Is it worth it? I have no idea. I haven't baked with it yet. Subscribe to the channel and stick around. I'll try a few recipes and let you know. Now that I've tried it once, I'm sure it will go more smoothly next time. And knowing what I do now, what will I do next time? Well, number 1, I probably will stick with the toilet tank method. Cleaning wasn't too big a deal, and I don't mind the mess or the weirdness too much, as long as we don't have guests over. Number 2, I'll probably try different types of bags and maybe grinding the meal a little bit finer. Number 3, I'll probably wait at least 2 weeks to start tasting it, and waiting a lot longer than 24 hours in between tastings is going to give my tongue a break. Number 4, having proper equipment seems pretty vital. Getting a grain mill or something at the end to grind it down is going to be a necessity. Let me know what you think in the comments, and if you've processed acorns a different way, I'd love to hear more about it. Until next time.